Just once more, good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Nicole Ponce and I am from the Resilient Cities Network, and it's a pleasure for me to introduce today's session of Cities on the Frontline. So we've heard from inspiring voices across regions, sectors, and backgrounds since launching our series back in 2020. And I'm happy to share that just in 2025, we had more than 1,600 people joining us live. This is going to be our 6th year doing our Cities on the Frontline sessions, and we are very much looking forward to starting it off with our session on women in resilience, bringing equity to the city, especially in the context of Women's History Month. So before we jump into the conversation, I would like to just share a couple of ground rules. We hope to have an open and candid conversation where you can interact with our panelists. For today's session, we have around 460 people registered. And to keep things flowing, we ask you to use the Q&A function on Zoom to share your questions. We'll make sure to relay those questions over in the Q&A box on Zoom. Just as a quick reminder as well, the session is going to be recorded, and the recording of the webinar is going to be available both on our YouTube and on our website. We're also going to be sharing those links with you at the end of the session so you can follow. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our amazing panelists today. So first of all, we're going to have Fernanda Lonardoni. She is the head of UN Habitat Subregion for Mexico, Cuba, and Central America. She has over 20 years of experience supporting governments in shaping urban policies and partnerships that advance more inclusive and resilient cities. We will also have Patricia Martinez Barba, who's the General Director of IMEPLAN at the Metropolitan Area of Guadalajara, who is joining us. So welcome, Patricia. She leads the metropolitan planning across land use, mobility, and development. Her work includes major initiatives in Jalisco, such as the Mi Macroperiférico BRT system, and programs that integrate gender into urban mobility. Last but not least, we're going to have Fernanda Lordelo. She is the Secretary of Policy for Women, Children, and Youth in Salvador. Secretary Lordelo leads policy and advances women's rights in Salvador, including efforts to address institutional violence and strengthen support systems for women across the city. So welcome everyone again. It's great to have you here, and I would just like to pass the floor over to Fernanda Lonardoni, who is going to help us set the context for today's conversation. So Fernanda, over to you.
Thank you very much. I am so honored to be with you this morning. It is a great pleasure. I'm connecting from Mexico City. It's 6 a.m., so apologies for anything, because at 6 a.m. one has the energy that one has. I will be speaking in English if that's okay. I understand that we have translation, and I want to start by saying bom dia, que é grande prazer para as minhas compatriotas brasileiras, y buenos días, qué gran honor estar aquí también con las colegas hispanohablantes, sobre todo las de México, y veo aquí también a Patricia. Será un gusto, Patricia, y sobre todo porque hablamos y trabajamos con Guadalajara. Let me share my slides, if I manage. Wonderful. So, once again, thank you very much. UN Habitat, and here I'm representing the Subregional Office of Mexico, Cuba, and Central America. We have our regional office in Brazil, and we have 3 sub-regional hubs, and I'm very proud to be here working with a wonderful team. And I have to say that in the past years, increasingly, the demand for our work on the area of resilience is increasing, and I'm very happy to be able to be presenting to you some of the paradigm shifts that I think it's necessary for us to continue working on the ground, and perhaps at the end give some of the ways forward for our work. Before anything, just give you a little bit of an understanding and reiterate that we are all on the same page as regards the global challenges that we have ahead of us. We have environmental degradation, we have climate change and vulnerability, we have growing urban poverty, and in the case of our own region, clearly remaining, and in some countries is still growing inequality, and especially especially spatial inequality. And in the middle of all of this, what touches us, UN Habitat, very closely is a global housing crisis. We know that in every country, across every region, the developed ones, the least developed ones, we are facing a global housing crisis. People have less conditions to access adequate housing. Housing prices are increasing, and in most cases, the quality of the housing that is being produced or the conditions in where people are living are deteriorating. And our role, obviously, in all of this, and I will keep emphasizing this, is to connect the urban and the city agenda to these global challenges, such as climate change, such as resilience, and such as poverty. We know that cities concentrate 56% of the world's population, and we are heading towards almost 70% in 30 years from now, or 25 years from now. So we are an urban world, and we will continue becoming an urban world. There's no way that we will keep talking about triple planetary crisis or global crisis without bringing to the core of the discussion urbanization and cities. We also know even more so because cities contribute to 80% of the GDP. They are responsible for 70% of the energy use and 60% of greenhouse gas emissions. So once again, there's no way that we're going to keep talking about resilience, climate change, and all types of global crises without talking about cities. The mandate of UN Habitat is very clear. We are within the United Nations systems. We are the urban agency. We are here to promote better quality of life for all people in cities and in human settlements and leave no one and no place behind. And I want to emphasize the spatial nature of our work. We work on the territory, and an important part of UN Habitat's work is to express in the territory trends that we see in social, environment, and economy. So our role in terms of the global agenda is precisely to connect urban and cities to the global frameworks that are looking at different aspects of environment, poverty, and degradation. So here you see the urban agenda, the agenda that UN Habitat takes as a sort of secretariat because it monitors its implementation connected to all other global agendas. And how can we position housing not only as part of the problem, but mainly as part of the solution to achieve all the global frameworks. Here, apologies, well, it's in a slide in Spanish, but I wanted to bring it here because it talks about our work and the focus of our work for the next 4 years. Last year, UN Habitat approved its new strategic plan, ranging from 2026 all the way to 2029. And this diagram round that you see on your screen, for those that cannot read it in Spanish or Portuguese, it puts housing and cities at the center, but not as a sector. It connects housing and cities to 3 major global crises: poverty and inequality, climate change, and crisis. In our region, in Latin American region, crisis is very much connected to human mobility and obviously also climate change. So the big paradigm that we want to shift with this strategic plan is move beyond looking at housing and cities as a sector in mainstreaming these issues as part of the solution for the 3 major global crises. So entering into the agenda of today, the key message that I wanted to start with, which I think is very important for all of us to be understanding the underlying issues that we're talking about. Cities are not gender neutral. They are designed systems that are systematically produce resilience for some and vulnerability for others. And I think it's very important that we start with this message and with this understanding. It's not only about design, it's not only technical, it's also a political and it's also a power issue. So we need to reframe this problem in many cases. I think we are advancing, we are moving towards this, but we still need to reframe this problem. Urban resilience is often treated as an infrastructure and a climate shock issue, but we know more and more that gender is a structural determinant gender and is a structural determinant of many things that are shaping our life in cities: mobility, access to service, economy recovery, and survival to disasters. Resilience is not about surviving to shocks, it's about who is able to adapt, who is able to recover, and who is able to thrive. And we know that women are systematically disadvantaged in this case, in this agenda. I wanted to talk about the big picture, as you mentioned before, Nicole, and also some of the paradigm shifts that we need in our work on the ground and also in policy in this agenda. The first one is moving from women as vulnerable to gender as a system of power shaping resilience, because this empowers women. This looks at women as actors that have what to say and that have a decision-making role into the discussion. So we have to move from looking at women as a vulnerable group, even though we still understand why they're vulnerable, but looking at what are the structural, looking at gender as a structural system that organizes risk and opportunities, especially in cities. And why? Let's look at some of the figures. We know that we have many gender gaps. Women's vulnerability are coming from what? From unequal access to assets, limited decision-making power, and unpaid care burden. These are some of many of the statistics that we could bring that is structurally emphasize and show how unequal the system is towards women. Globally, we know that only 50% of women hold tenure land, access to tenure security on the land that they possess or occupy. 26% of the global GDP is accounted for by domestic and care work, which is not paid for and which we know is borne by women, and only 23% of women are occupying government positions. So this is the underlying structural inequalities that we have that also shape capacity and resilience in cities, and that's part of the first paradigm shift. So number two, where else we should head towards, or what changes do we need? Moving from infrastructure resilience to everyday life resilience. It's not only talking about resilience when we have a major chaos or a major climate event, but talking about resilience on a daily basis. So it's not only about focus on the floods and the earthquakes, but also focus on how we improve and how are we able to recover from a hard day at work or from a hard day using 4 hours of public transportation and arriving at home, or feeling unsafe while we are walking from our work to school or from our work to our home. So it's about everyday resilience. Let's look at the data. We know that women make much more complex, multi-stop trips every day to take the people that we care for to work, to school. But we also know that transport systems are designed for linear commuting patterns, which are very male-oriented. We also know that women move less and they access fewer opportunities due to mobility constraints in cities because they don't feel safe most of the time. There's no lighting, there's no safety, there's no toilets. 60% of women feel unsafe in public spaces globally. That's a huge statistics. 30% of women have experienced domestic violence at least once in their lifetime. And this has to do with the way that we are designing houses and the way that we are designing our communities. So part still of this second paradigm shift is looking at gender equality. Gender equality doesn't just increase the vulnerability, it actively reduces the resilience of the entire city. Because if women are not able, if half of the population is not able to recover or is facing on a daily basis difficulties to recover themselves, then the city is not resilient. If a woman cannot move safely across the city is therefore not resilient. So the shift I wanted for us to look here is, again, not only the big climate events, but looking at small design issues that make the lives of half of the population, in this case, women, disproportionately able to recover and live better lives in their cities. Number three, what's the other paradigm shift that we need? Moving from gender inclusion as only a social issue, it is a social issue, it is a rights issue, but it's gender equality is a resilient infrastructure. This is a very important issue for policy. We need to shift the policy here and start, again, not only looking at gender as a social and rights issue and connect it with the vulnerability label that we have attached to women, but look at gender equality more as a core urban system that defines resilience outcomes. Again, why? We know that about 1 billion of people today live in slums. Okay, we know that in slums and informal settlements, but we also know that women are overrepresented amongst the urban poor. So therefore, more women living in some of those more vulnerable areas, and therefore exposed to pollution, to climate risks. And because these areas are more vulnerable to disasters, we know that disasters kill more women than men, especially in those poor urban areas where we know where now 1 billion people are living. Women are also the first responders in community, and especially in informal settlements. They are the ones that are leading community efforts, that are leading efforts in terms of food system, care systems in their own communities, and have a major role in the recovery and resilience capacity. And at the same time, and that's a structural issue here, we have an equal representation of women in decision-making, both in government as well as in planning and design of cities. So part of this paradigm shift is urban resilience is not only about absorbing shocks, it is about who has the power to adapt and thrive. We must include those who sustain resilience in planning and in decision-making. And that's a core issue and something that UN Habitat really works for. Now, I would like to move towards very brief examples of how we are working on UN Habitat on trying to address some of these three major paradigm shifts, promoting gender and equity to foster resilience in our work. First of all, the first paradigm shift, looking at gender as a system of power. I'm very proud to say that last year, in partnership with the government of Mexico, both the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well as the Minister of Territorial Development and Housing, we organized the first international forum on feminist cities. We had the pleasure of having here with us Leslie Cairn, who most of you know is the author of The Feminist City, one of the major voices in shifting this paradigm from vulnerability towards power and towards a political issue. And we last year had the first regional and international discussion here in Mexico. And this year, we're going to have the second edition. And this is a major opportunity, is precisely for us to sum voices and all together start looking at how we can shift the paradigm from looking at only vulnerability and looking at gender as a system of power that can then change the whole structure of city planning and design. Secondly, the second paradigm, looking at everyday life resilience. UN Habitat has led a movement that is called Her City. And Her City is about connecting, is about fostering local and exchange of initiatives that give power and and allow voices of women and girls to be part of the design of their own communities. So this year, we published the Spanish version of the guide that's called Her City Guide. And this is a tool that supports urban development from a girls' and women's perspective, provide an open and digitally accessible platform for all women and girls to be part of this, guide urban actors to implement projects through a step-by-step methodology, and facilitate ongoing dialogue between professionals and citizens. If you want, maybe after Marta and Cynthia, we can help to put the links of these tools all online for everyone to access, both in English as well as in Spanish. And third, as we move towards how can we design better, how can we enable these women living in informal settlements, living in vulnerable communities to respond, we are very proud to have developed here in our region a methodology that intervenes at local level, at barrio, as we say, or communities. It's called Urban Integrated Operations, and it provides a methodology that starts with a diagnostic, integrates every voice, and especially women and girls, and how they want the design to be done, what are the issues that they face on their own communities, and then start the design of solutions in which they all participate together, leading together with their communities. This tool has been applied in all Central American countries, and it's now becoming a trend. Governments come more and more to us because the methodology is very on the ground, and it allows us to guide the participation and the involvement of all groups, and especially the most vulnerable ones, such as women and girls. And finally, still on the paradigm shift number 3, because essentially how we move from how we implement this idea of gender as a power structure and towards the design of the cities, we have a number of methodologies, tools that are looking at how to design more resilient cities, always taking into consideration the importance of focusing on women and girls. And now I am already finishing. I know we didn't have much time, and I wanted just to conclude with a couple of thoughts as what is it that we must change, and what are the emerging insights that are coming in this agenda? First is to shift towards having an intersectional resilience. We cannot look at women as a group. We must understand from the 30% women that don't feel safe in public spaces, how many are indigenous, how many are poor? The disaggregation of this data is very important. The intersectionality of vulnerability is very important. Secondly, we are moving towards gender-responsive urban system, looking at how we can design transport for care economy and with safety embedded in all the steps of the design process of transport. How can we improve lighting? How can we have mixed use? How can we have proximity so that we allow women to be using transport systems and to be moving in cities in an equal way as men? Third, a government shift, gender-responsive budgeting, and women in decision-making. Again, almost only 20% of mayors worldwide are women. And if we don't involve women in decision-making, both as government as well as in planning, we know that we have a gap in terms of designing cities for all. And finally, very important is the data revolution. Move from national averages, once again, knowing that 30% of women are not able to move safely on public transportation is not enough. How many are migrant? How many are Afro-descendants? How many are indigenous people? So this is very important. We must have sex disaggregated data and understand how is this reflected in the lived experiences of people in their cities. And finally, I will end with a message that we all in Habitat, we always repeat, which is if we design cities for women, we know that we are designing cities for all. That's a message that we emphasize. And if we design cities for women, we also know that we are designing more resilient cities. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to listening to the other interveners. Thank you, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Fernanda. I really enjoyed that final message. I was looking at one of the comments that I saw from the chat that I think I really connected to what you're saying. Women do not have the right to flourish, then the entire society is held back. So I think that with this, we can move on to our next panelist, who is Patricia. Patricia is going to share a little bit more about the initiative of Women in Resilience, which is the initiative that inspired this session. So Patricia, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here to share with you part of the experience that we have put in place in Guadalajara metropolitan area. I'd like to share how we have included the gender perspective across actions that have an impact at local level. For this, I have a presentation, a short presentation, where we can discuss these 4 points, allowing us to give a context about which we have started at the Guadalajara metropolitan area and some key examples on how we have been encouraging this agenda to the local governments and how we have been working in replicating it to other cities, acknowledging as well other initiatives. I will not take too much time in these details because my colleague has already detailed it. Just to share a couple of ideas. The women are the ones who leave the main impact in climate change impact. 80% of people or of women suffer more with climate change. We are the ones who contribute more with climate change impacts. On the other hand, just to give you the dimension of the housing. Housing is a problem that many world cities face. In our case, the government brings the credits to the purchase of houses, and they say that more and more houses are being rented because people cannot apply to credit to buy a property because women don't earn enough to be able to be eligible to a mortgage. In this sense, this is a phenomenon that more and more will increase, and this leads to a precarious situation having an impact in social mobility. And in this case, women are the ones who suffer more. Some of the data for you to understand how our region is distributed. We are a municipality, Guadalajara, and here we have 60% of the population of the whole Jalisco state. Fernanda was explaining already on how we have 56% of population living in cities, and I would add that 1/3 of this population is living in metropolitan areas. This represents requires from coordination from different local governments for us to be able to work policies, public policies that meet mitigation adaptation to climate change phenomena. In our case, we also have a data that we have to underline because probably we will be having it in other cities. The whole territory of these 9 municipality, only 25% is urban areas, 75% is still rustic or farming. It's farming and rural areas. This means that we still have an economy that depends on some activities of using territory having a direct relationship with urban activities. How are we participating given these challenges at planning level? Our main vocation is to plan, coordinate, and manage metropolitan areas. All our analysis include gender variables, and our studies should also have disaggregated data. Something very simple. What is not listed does not exist. If we do not include in our analysis the impact that this has to women in the development of our territories, it will be more difficult for all the decisions to be taken based on these evident realities that require a different focus in order to avoid inequalities, how we use cities and how we may have access to them. For that, we have underlined in our cooperation international side these in the fostering this agenda as well. We have to discuss these two examples. The case of women in resilience, a call that will recognize initiatives that bring several cities in the world to be replicated, and on the other hand, we have prepared the handbook of governance and metropolitan resilience for us to be able to guide local governments to advance in this agenda. And why these initiatives? Why are they important? Of course, because it allows us to really focus these differentiated experiences from local governments and its impact in metropolitan areas as well, allowing us to consider different scenarios that give visibility to all these realities, promoting actions considering other contexts, similar contexts that will allow us to replicate it in other contexts and in other cities. So, what is it about? We can find the handbook in this web page. It can be unloaded. What can I say about this agenda? The cases that we can analyze and share as good practices. This agenda was really prepared in collaboration with the Barcelona metropolitan area. We have been working together for 12 years, so we learned with Barcelona because they have been organizing this for decades and they have a very important structures so that it can also have an impact at decision level in the metropolitan area. To answer the question, how can we start working the metropolitan governance? Here we have some tips or some steps that we can really start with. This agenda allow us to identify the challenges, shared challenges. We also have some government models, the Guadalajara and Barcelona models, how they are structured, organized, and we also give evidence or we underline some reference cases. One which is really well known in South Africa, in Cape Town, when they had a water crisis. We also are facing a water crisis, so we can follow it. And we can also give the example of the management of waste. We changed the logic of consumption and we put in place a community initiative considering climate guidelines. And also it is also important to speak about lessons learned and to have keynotes on how to really helping us to really prepare recommendations, practical recommendations for implementation. The second example is the Women in Resilience call for proposals. We did it together with the collaboration of Resilient Cities. It is in the first edition. We only had 7 applications, but then we had in the following one, in the second edition, 24 initiatives. We can also extend the achievements because this allows us to generate a community of knowledge. And in this community of knowledge, this is where we find similarities and we learn how to approach them. So it's very valuable because local government have not only gender gaps but also budgetary gaps that hinder the implementation of these initiatives. Some of these cases, the idea is for us to be able to learn. Likewise, other cities in similar conditions in order for us to be able to put in place projects that are transforming. Technical visits, allowing us to extend a network of knowledge we have here, Fernanda, when we did it, the winner projects, Mulher Salvador, Salvador Woman. What other experiences in this case of the program of rain nets in water resilience and women drivers driving buses or public transportation. And in Barcelona, we were able to also learn from very specific cases of these big metropol of this big city. The winner was Cuenca, Ecuador. The winner, with a very sensitive program, how to fully meet women's needs, women who were subject to violence. I'm ending my presentation by showing you some of the key learning implementation of gender agendas from the metropolitan point of view. One is the importance of these knowledge, community knowledge, to capitalize this knowledge with different experiences, and the importance it's important to be able to document, for us to be able to have access and to be able to institutionalize. All the efforts are of value, so it's important to have institutions to become institutionalized and to consider not only the economic gaps, but all the inequalities that arise with the impact of cities, access to women, and how we live in urban context. For us, it was also very important to bet in decentralized cooperation, allowing us to have access to funds for us to be able to put in place and develop initiatives such as the ones I have mentioned, as Women in Resilience. And finally, this resistance, the resilience of local governments is important. This is the most important one, so that this learning will allow us to consolidate, as said, a type of collective knowledge for us to have more incidence regardless of the countries where we are. We are speaking about a challenge that is global. And with this, I thank you for your time. And if you have time for questions and answers, I will be available and willing to reply to any doubt, any question you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for sharing the amazing work that the metropolitan area of Guadalajara is doing. Now we are going to move on to our last presentation with Secretary Fernanda. It's going to be a great opportunity to hear exactly about this, one of the initiatives that was awarded within the Women in Resilience initiative. So Fernanda, I am going to pass the floor over to you. We have your presentation at hand, so James, if you can help us sharing, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? First, I would like to thank the invitation from Javier and Nicole for participating in the networks of intelligent cities, or resilient cities, sorry. It is very good to be able to see Patricia again. We saw each other in 2024, and to also see Fernanda, who really spoke about very positive things that we are speaking about here in Salvador, to start thinking about it. But the reason for being here is to bring and speak about Salvador. Salvador was founded in 1549. It is a very old city with a very big geological failure, with a higher city and lower city. And given the natural disasters we have regarding this difference, that it will impact women mostly and more vulnerable territories. So it was the first capital of Brazil. It's very dynamic, creative. It is a city that has been working with about resilience. It has human cultural capital, is overlooking the sea and the world, We have ports, harbors. It's not only the city of Carnival. We have multiple identities. It is innovative. It has a social economic development that fosters resilience, inclusion, and the integration of people, trying to become more and more resilient. We have more than 2,500,000 inhabitants in the city, or even more. We have 54% of women. In Brazil, we are 51.5%. In Bahia, 52%. And in Salvador, we are 54%. In this city, we have difficulties to have access to labor market, namely to the women who still live taking care of the family, namely Black and young women. And this inequality is above the national average, reflecting historical and structural barriers. There is a lack of coordination among existing services and policies aimed at ensuring the rights of women in Salvador, for us to really ensure the rights of women. As a result, we in 2023 we approved or established the decree Salvador Women. It was important for the women's resilience, for us to be able, through training, professional development, entrepreneurship, and creation of jobs, for us to be able to really strengthen the women in Salvador. It is coordinated by the Municipal Secretariat for Policies for Women, Children and Youth, and the Municipal Secretariat for Economic Development, Employment and Revenue of the capital city. One of our biggest partners is SENAI. SENAI and SENAC. SENAI is a national industrial training service. It is a national service of industrial learning so that women have a certification and be able to join the labor market. It's not only needed the training, but also insertion or accession to the labor market. So, given this parameter, these are areas of action, our beneficiaries as a rule, and the priorities for the programs are single mothers, women-headed households, the PCDs or mothers of children, Black women and Quilombola women, and women victims of home violence. Just for you to have an idea, only in Salvador, the Secretariat manages the House of the Brazilian Women. The house is an office of services. In December 2023 until March this year, we had more than 32,000 attendance of women who were subject to home violence. There was a reduction of 50%. So we have a very careful look to women. Likewise, Fernanda said, many of these women suffer violence and they are vulnerable, so they need our consideration from the public policies. The program that we have to present today, it is the program Mulher Salvador Woman, a solar energy system installation. It's an area oriented to men mostly, but now we are opening it to women, covering the fundamentals of solar energy to the installation and maintenance of photovoltaic systems or panels. When the course was started, many feared because they didn't believe they could have access to the market in this area. And the figures at the end were very positive. And today, most of these women already finished their training with a job. So it was a success to bring them to this perspective, which was not expected by themselves. Many came back to the course when they left. In training, these women received the knowledge, soft skills, financial education, entrepreneurship, customer service, sales, and fundamentals of electricity and solar photovoltaics. This in here we have what we have to really consider in this program. There are other projects, and at the end, I will share with you what we have just launched in Salvador with good results and expectations, things that we have achieved with those women. From 2023-2024, we had 114 graduated cities, 98 came from the labor market, an average of 30 women in each classroom. Then the course increased. The program was created in an inclusive, supportive environment that promotes women's economic and social empowerment, contributing with gender inequalities, namely in the sector, because the companies, they needed to be adapted to the presence of women who brought a lot of suggestions, and we have received a very positive feedback from these employers related to the presence of these women in the locations where they are working. They are already leaders in some of these offices. It is a concrete opportunity for professional and personal development, increasing employability rates and the ability to generate income in a sustainable manner. Most of these women, they didn't have the opportunity, so this helped to strengthen the communities, creating a multiplier effect for social economic development. There is a social technology movement when they really women that bring this success initiative. The initiative was key because it invests in training women for the predominantly male solar energy sector. In addition, it generates diversification of the local energy mix, but also promotes gender equality and social inclusion. Thank you, Nicole. Challenges. The challenges that we have. The women have had the following challenges. We need support. These needs continue. They have also, in addition, responsibilities with the children, the elderly, sick people, everyone depending in the family require the presence of women, and this compromises the social economic outcome. So the women's presence in the courses, sometimes they themselves don't believe in their potential, and these women are more and more occupying these spaces and feeling safe. This is what we wish. Communication strategies have been changed to inspire and to motivate them to participate in activities aimed at building self-confidence and challenging gender stereotypes in the labor market. This space is not feminine. It's an idea that they have to really update. As opportunities, we identify that the solar energy is a sector that in Salvador de Bahia is expanding. offering a lot of job opportunities in a sustainability area or field. This is very promising and can help and has been helping to reduce economic and social inequalities in the city, promoting more inclusive and sustainable urban development. There was a significant improvement of these women in this course, access to a growing job market in expansion, which inspires more women to pursue careers in technology and innovation sectors. It is an area we know that is not much explored. We also have in Salvador Expo Women's Expo. We are trying to take them from this traditional economy to bring them to these programs together with the secretariat. We have professionals to really follow them up. We are building a platform where they tell or expose or publicize their businesses. Some of them go straight to become self-employed. They become independent from companies, and also the strengthening of the green jobs policy in the city of Salvador. Here we have some examples, some images of what we do with our work. And finally, in order to end my presentation, I would like to speak about the women who protect people, leaders that we have come across in the community. We have 10 neighborhood municipalities or city councils. We identified leader women and we created the program Women Who Protect. They work with us in civil defense in Salvador. When we have rain, when sirens go on, they are in the front line to help the community. These women welcome the women victims of home violence, and they send them to the municipality services. They really organize meetings and they bring us information about difficulties, garbage, sewage, urban violence, home violence. So through this program that we have launched at the end of last year and beginning this year, we aim to build a new step so that the social technology of these women be the entry door for the development of local public policies, because the impact is in the territories, as we have all said. So we need these women to build effective public policies in the office. We are unable to take decisions alone. So these women who protect are there for this. Soon, when we have more significant figures, we will really bring these women to compete, and we will show the world this project that has been very successful in Salvador. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Secretary Fernanda. As you can see in the chat, everyone is amazed at the work that you're doing. We see what an amazing work of multiple people. So I think we are out of time for today's session. We won't be able to dive into a Q&A, but I just want to thank both you, Patricia, and Secretary Fernanda for joining, and of course, Fernanda, who had to leave us a little bit early, but it's been very inspiring to hear from the initiatives that you're taking and to see also the region come together to incentivize and share these best practices. So thank you for being here today. Thank you also also to our great audience who joined us. Just don't forget that the recordings of the sessions and the materials are going to be available both on our website and on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to dive back into these presentations if you wish to do so. Do stay tuned for our next session that's going to be on the future of resilience practice. It's going to take place on the 30th of April. And yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna go ahead and close this meeting. I hope that everyone has a wonderful day or evening, depending on where you are. Thanks again.